Okay, um, I promise you guys this is the last video. Keeps cutting me off. So we were up to this piece of evidence and the scientific romance. Now, my driving idea is about the fact that the party does not allow people to engage meaningfully with others in a relationship, and that is obviously exemplified by the character Winston himself. Now, Winston is actually desiring for intimacy, and that is clear in his initial encounter with Julia, and sees the act, obviously, of lovemaking as both a way of receiving love and affection, and as an opportunity to break away from the party's panoptic control. And I need to add a piece of evidence to back that up. And what he wanted more even than to be loved was to break down that wall of virtue, even if it were only once in his whole life. The metaphor wall of virtue refers to the party's obsession to enforce chastity and to limit lovemaking in couples as propagating the human race. Now, that notion of chastity is there, and it will be demonstrated that you know that. Okay, don't worry about that. Now, the theme of hope is another key trope of the dystopian genre. Runs at the beginning of part 2, when Orwell juxtaposes feelings and instinct to reveal that the citizens are forced to become animalistic, since they repress their feelings in order to trust in one's primal instinct. In not to let one's feeling appear in one's face was a habit that had acquired the status of an instinct. But the promise of Julia's love is palpable, driving force, providing him with hope and thereby realizing his human potential. At the sight of the words "I love you," the desire to stay alive had welled up in him. The use of the word "alive" is metaphorical, since it aligns with Orwell's purpose of demonstrating that only one can be fully alive when actualizing one's human potential to love, build trust, and dream. Now, unfortunately, this block of text was from a previous document that I had, and I haven't been able to undo the highlighting. The highlighting should only be that aspect of fully alive when actualizing one's human potential to love, because that actually links back to my topic sentence there. Everything else is just some textual evidence and some analysis. Okay, all right, so let's go to my last paragraph. Now, my last paragraph is pretty chunky, so if I were to hand this in, I'll probably edit this a little bit, but I wanted to make it this long to demonstrate all the aspects that are required of this type of response. So that's why I have also got different font colors to show those aspects. Okay, so my last topic sentence is: by limiting independent thoughts and emotions. Again, I'm linking back there. Now, this linking back, I must add, is a very important aspect that will add cohesion to your response. So that has to do with the interlinking, the connections that interlink all those ideas, the ones from your topic sentences and the ones from your concluding statements. All right, so the party can completely control humans' rationality and emotional life, and by discouraging love and affection in relationships with one another, they effectively make any human attempt to actualize one's rationality and emotion futile. Why am I talking about it being futile? Because that is pretty much what I'm trying to say in regards to answering that question. How does the ending in 1984 show that he's the last man? The ending is pretty much, okay, so he has just succumbed or has to the party or betrayed his own humanity. So that means he cannot be human. He cannot actualize his humanity, even though he's still alive and he's kind of walking around, right? So therefore, it really doesn't matter from then on what his life is like. His life is probably going to end anyway. But he has already given up everything that makes him human. So any actualization of being human is totally impossible, and any try to do that is futile. Okay, so the constant control the citizens of Oceania are subjected to can be exemplified by the four ministries. But Winston's place of work, the Ministry of Truth, is particularly insidious, as by controlling what is collectively remembered, the ministry is able to limit independent thoughts. So I'm moving to this idea of independent thought. This can only derive from one's knowledge of truth and the past. So I am weaving in a fair bit of interpretation there about that notion of Ministry of Truth, how that limits independent thoughts, and how with that limitation of truth and the past, which is rendered mutable and contestable and can be manipulated according to the party's needs, we cannot really survive as humans. By controlling the populace's access to memory, furthermore, the party can change what makes each individual unique. His own sense of identity is shaped by his past and memories. So by shaping their past and memories, they can actually make them one with the party, okay, because they will not have any sense of individuality. Okay, when Winston visits the antique shop, a glass paperweight with a coral embedded in it catches his attention in what appeared to him above was not so much its beauty as the air it seemed to possess of belonging to an age quite different from the present one. The purchase is highly and I'm interpreting this. The purchase is, or analyzing I should say, the purchase is highly subversive. Is a highly subversive act which will be punished. And the fragile object representing the past and Winston's and Julia's union in love is violently shattered during the arrest. Additionally, okay, I'm moving on to another idea. In the society of Oceania, human emotions and memories are vilified and close relationships are discouraged as they are outside the party's interest. Remembering and reflecting about the past allows Winston to ascertain his humanity and find what is essential in the quest to maintain it. If you loved someone, you loved him, and when you had nothing else to give, you gave him love. The use of asyndeton clearly underscores the importance of love and affection in shaping what makes us distinctly human. Okay, so I'm moving from that idea of being distinctly human to love and affection. Beyond human feelings and emotion, the need for a rational worldview is also emphasized in freedom, is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 makes 4. If that is granted, all else follows. Orwell establishes objectivity, logic, and access to historical facts as the antidote to the party's psychological control. Okay, so I'm linking it back to ideas within the historical context and also his purpose there. Okay, a defiant act towards the party is evident in Winston's determination not to succumb to their coercion and in turn lose what makes him human. Okay, he's actually determined not to lose that until the moment, as you know, that he is presented with those rats. Okay, so his struggle by standing up against the tyrannical system is exemplified by the assertive tone in "I'm backing up my evidence." No, he said a little more hopefully. No, that's quite true. They can't get inside you. If you can feel that staying human is worldwide, even when it can't have any result whatever, you've beaten them. The need for sacrificing human love is denied as Winston finally succumbs to party control in room 101. Okay, so I'm moving on in terms of the plots there. And I'm saying, yes, he's determined to keep what makes him unique, what makes him, a rational and a feeling human being. But now, unfortunately, he needs to demonstrate he's able to sacrifice himself in order to uphold that notion of humanity, but he's unable to do that because of his irrational fear of rats. Okay, and that linked to his mother and how he saw his mother being pretty much eaten up by rats. Okay, in an act of self-preservation, when faced with the imminence of his death through rats eating his body, he begs for his most sacred relationship with Julia to disappear, as he metaphorically surrendered his own right to individual fulfillment through love in order to save his own life. So he pretty much surrenders that right to fulfillment through love in order to just save his physical life. Okay, he screams, "Do it to Julia, do it to Julia, not me. Julia, I don't care what you do it to her. Tear her face off, strip her to the bones. Not me, Julia, not me." The horrific fear is elucidated through the desperate exclamations, coupled with the repetition of Julia's name. Through this act, Orwell clearly highlights the futility of individual resurrection against the boundless depravity of the established system, further emphasizing the ensuing betrayal of his humanity in surrendering to the party's demand for total control of the mind and the spirit of man. Okay, so I got an extensive piece of analysis there. And finally, the future of Oceania is explored in the appendix. So I added the appendix because you guys were so interested in it. Through its focus on the development of Newspeak, illustrating how humanity's individuality will be completely extinguished. Independent thought and experience outside the party's control will be impossible, as the brainwashed populace will be limited to a base level of language in the collective experience. This is to be implemented by the limitation exerted through Newspeak and doublethink, which will obliterate all conceptualization of individual thoughts and a wide range of ideas and emotion. That's what, pretty much in a nutshell, what is explored in the appendix. Okay. In the appendix, this is evident in, so I'm adding a quote there, the intervention of new worlds, but chiefly eliminating undesirable worlds, and by stripping such words as remain of unorthodox meanings, the didactic tone ironically conveys a picture of utter and total control of language, thought, and ultimately experience. Okay, so that is what the appendix is trying to do. Now, why did I highlight this? Well, my whole paragraph is about what makes us different. That is that idea of love, affection, and rationality and emotion, okay, and how that is manipulated by the party, and obviously all of it is surrendered by Winston in the end, and therefore we know he's the last man and he's pretty much lost it there. Okay, sorry for my use of colloquial words there, but I think that very clearly encapsulates that notion. Now, so with the total control of language, thought, and individuality, and they can ultimately control experience. That's what they were supposed to be doing at the end in the appendix, so it paints a very grim picture of the future. Okay, overall, the realistic portrayal of characters and settings add to the feeling of control and manipulation ever present in Oceania. By the way, this is my conclusion. And Winston's final decision to succumb to the party's power in order to save his life serves as a cautionary tale, so I'm linking it to purpose there. Okay, I'm going from very specific, my lines of argument, my evidence, my links to the context, genre, character, setting, etc. Now I'm moving to a more broad development of my ideas, and that is, what is the purpose of this? This is a cautionary tale. We are able to prevent it, okay, but how? That's the thing. So that's kind of that question that leaves that always leaves open for us to think about. Cautionary tale in underlining a sense of apocalyptic horror. Obviously, it's a horrific future if we were to perceive it that way. Okay, so he has effectively painted that very horrific and grim future, okay, that awaits us. It ultimately highlights through the last man's demise, because it's his demise at the end, he's the last man, that when humanity surrenders its right to freedom and self-expression through love and trust, its fate is sealed and its survival is imperiled. Okay, so I'm closing all my ideas there. As I said before, I reckon that this paragraph could be shortened. Okay, my second paragraph is not too bad, my first paragraph is not too bad, but I think that my third paragraph I will probably shorten that. It's way too long. But there were a number of ideas that I wanted to embed there, and that goes hand in hand with why I'm making these videos, so that you will see the development of my thinking. So I want to make my thinking very clear, very visible to you, so that you can see all my intentions and how I am, putting everything to practice, and from theory to practice. This is my thinking. I got my ideas, then I'm labeling them, categorizing them, linking them to my lines of argument, linking everything back to, my thesis statement, how I'm answering that question, and then clearly structuring all my essay and making it very cohesive and coherent. Okay, so Anyway, that's the end of the video. I think I finished with all my